David, a couple of stories to get to today. Can I just start? I don't know if you happen to hear the Bernard Dranville interview or not from Friday. Did you have a chance to hear that?
Unfortunately, I
Okay.
couldn't. No.
Then I'm not going to ask you about it because when I asked him about Bill 21, he nearly lost his mind. So we'll save that for another day.
Well, that's par for the course, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah, I guess. Uh,
Let's remember, he's the author of the
true,
Charter of Value.
true,
Please,
true.
please.
Let me start by talking about what apparently is now starting to set up as I don't know, a federal election sooner rather than later. We're talking about Prime Minister Carney meeting with Doug Ford. Two of them have become pretty buddy-buddy over the last little while, too.
Sure. And, well, when you look at the polls, I mean, Doug Ford is one of the most astute politicians in Canada right now, and he can read a poll like you and me. And Mark Carney is at over 50% in Ontario specifically. And he's no friend of Pierre Poilievre's. So I think it's a marriage of convenience, and you've seen Mark Carney open up to Chinese EVs. At the same time, you saw that this was part of a bigger, broader strategy, with last week Mark Carney announcing a rebate for electric vehicles manufactured in Canada. That's definitely a sweetener to help Doug Ford swallow the original entry of Chinese EVs. So there's a big partnership developing there, but I really think, Aaron, that the election talk is mostly about making sure that with his almost majority, Mark Carney keeps everybody in Ottawa in line, I mean the opposition parties, for what he needs and wants to do in the next few months and hopefully years for him, is because going back to the polls after not even a year, or maybe just a year after the last election, you need a pretty big reason. And Justin Trudeau actually lost a lot of political points for going back to the election, to the polls, for no apparent reason. Remember, after the 2019 election, he went back in 2021 and basically got almost the identical makeup of the Commons that he had in 2019, and it actually hurt him a lot politically. And so I think it's more about keeping everybody in line, keeping that threat. Pierre Poilievre, at his leadership review convention, said very clearly that he is in a collaborative mood with Ottawa. It's not in his interest to provoke an election. He's 25 points down when you look at who would make a better premier behind Carney. There's definitely nobody in the Conservative Party that is wanting this or wants to provoke this. So without a crisis issue, or some sort of, Canadian unity moment, I don't see how this can take any type of serious shape.
Well, I guess the question I would ask was, and I see if I can phrase this the right way. You said, you know what, that's a big ask less than a year after, you had an election and won. What would it take for him to say, or for the party to say, you know what, yeah, if you provide this as the rationale, we think that'd be okay and you can win? What would it be?
Well, I think it would have to be a Canadian unity issue, a Trump provocation that, to another level, to an existential threat or some sort of existential economic threat as well, that would necessitate a complete majority mandate saying, okay, to tackle this crisis moment, I need a majority government. And let's face it, right now, the polls, it's not like Mark Carney. Let's say today's polls were the result of an eventual spring election. It would be maybe up 2, 3, 5 seats. This is not like he has such a bump from Davos and everything that's going on that it would be much different than last year's election. So to generate, when we've seen these types of moments, like, for example, Doug Ford did it successfully last year,
right,
just before the federal election. And what did he have to provoke an early election? He had Trump. He had the existential threat of Trump. And that gave him the impetus to go to the polls before the law said he had to, and he won a bigger majority because of that. You need that type of the massive issue. Obviously, the classic in our history, in Quebec history, is the 1962 election on nationalizing hydro. And that was the big issue. It was one question: we need a mandate to do this. This will transform our society. So, I mean, we can speculate. I mean, I hope there isn't a massive economic crisis on the horizon, or Trump goes completely crazy on the international stage and threatens Canada's sovereignty in a way we couldn't foresee. But I don't see that issue right now on the table.
All right, let me move on from that and talk about this Angus Reid story suggesting that, I don't know, if fair to say the separation movement in Alberta, for all the talk it's been getting, is just perhaps not as strong perhaps as we think it is?
Well, it isn't. I think I think there's a lot of hype around this, obviously, here in Quebec because of what we've been going through for 60 years. But the thing is that first of all, the hype is generated by the fact that in Alberta, you can provoke a referendum if you get a certain number of signatures. So there's a process. And so, yeah, if you get 178,000 signatures, well, you're here you go. You're on the ballot. And that's moving. But poll after poll after poll have been saying the same thing, is that first of all, the movement itself is not gaining a lot of traction. There's been a lot of revelations that certain leaders of this movement, first of all, it's not a one unified movement. Two, some of the leaders of this movement or active, leaders of this movement have serious ties to MAGA in the United States. That's not necessarily a good thing, even in Alberta. Two, also, let's face it, Alberta is using this. I mean, the Conservatives in Alberta, Danielle Smith, they've been talking up this for a while now, saying, hey, this talk of independence, it worked for Quebec for decades, getting more from Ottawa.
Yeah.
Let's try it for ourselves. Let's get this going. So when you look at the polls, when you look at Calgary, Edmonton, where the votes are, people aren't very interested in generating this. And also, let's face it, Mark Carney has done from that perspective, from Alberta's perspective, he's worked for Alberta. I mean, the pipeline work that he's done, and also he's polling very well for a federal liberal prime minister. I mean, he's in the 40s. Right now in terms of popularity in Alberta, which is unheard of. So there is a Carney effect as well in terms of Canadian unity here.
Does Mark Carney stick his nose into this? Because up until now, of course, there's two issues. Number one, Danielle Smith kind of sitting in the middle here on the fence,
Sure.
With respect to this. Is this for Mark Carney to stay out of?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
He doesn't have to stir the pot on this. First of all, it's really a provincial issue to be generated, and the thing is, the worst thing he could do right now is step into it and start trying to influence this in any way. Right now, there's no need for him to intervene.
All right. I want to ask you something, David. I know it's not on our list, but I wanted to bring it up. So Charles Milliard, who it looks like, come at the end, I guess, of this week, right? Yeah. I think Feb 14th is the deadline.
On the 13th.
Okay. He's going to be the Liberal leader. I heard Mario Waugh on the station today. He was on with Elias this morning. He's apparently not giving up, even though he owes a pile of money, only has a couple of days to come up with it. And I thought to myself when I heard it, this doesn't look good for the Liberal brand.
Well, there's a lot of things that are off with the Liberal brand right now. And I think you could say that this is one of them. But Mario Waugh, let's face it, did he get even 1% of the vote last time around, last June, during the convention? He still owes $18,000 from the last race. He hasn't paid that off, and if he doesn't even have that money paid off. And if he does, he has until Friday to raise another 30 to generate that race. But I think what you're raising is interesting in the sense that you don't sense the same type of, let's say, enthusiasm or energy even from Charles Milliard himself. Clearly the caucus is divided. Clearly, there are a lot of gaping open wounds from the whole Pablo Rodriguez episode. And on top of that, Charles Milliard has really, it's been clear let's face it, since December, that was basically his for the taking. And he has not been very, let's say, active or very adamant in defining himself. I mean, the issues are clear. I mean, last Thursday, there's a big poll, a Somme Le Soleil poll, asking Quebecers, what are your most important issues going into the next provincial election? 70% of Quebecers named cost of living. After that, it's healthcare. After that, it's housing. And after that, it's economic development. Sovereignty is at 10%, Aaron, and secularism is at 10% as well. So where is Charles Milliard on these issues? He has not defined himself, and a lot of people are starting to have doubts about Charles Milliard and the party's capacity to come together. Have you seen a lot of big-name liberals come out and say, okay, I'm behind Charles Milliard? No, you haven't seen that. You haven't seen that from a lot of players from, the Charest era, the Couillard era. You haven't seen that. And so there doesn't seem to be a lot of energy there. So that's why why are we talking about Mario Roy? I mean, with all due respect to the man, I mean, okay, he wants to run, it's his right, and good for him if he wants his ideas to be discussed. But at the end of the day, he is not a player in this. So the reason why we're talking about this is that Charles Milliard is not taking up the space, and that's very worrisome. Going into now what we're going into 8 months from the election.
Yeah.
Very, very worrisome at this point.
We will leave it at that. David, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Have a great week.
Take care. You too.
I'm Dylan Playfair.
And I'm Tyler Smith.
We're putting loneliness in the penalty box by talking to some of our favorite athletes about the importance of friendship.
This is Bromance.
Bromance is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, proudly Canadian-owned and operated. Charm has been part of your love stories and bromances for over 50 years.
And you can find Bromance on the iHeartRadio network or wherever you get your podcasts.